Afternoon all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. So we're on the fifth and final webinar for Carers Week now, which is all around employer support for carers. Thanks for joining. Just a brief bit of housekeeping. Next slide, please, Natalie. So just before we start, just to say that we are recording this session. We'll be making those recordings available hopefully next week to everyone that's attended. And if you know people that might benefit from this session that aren't able to attend today, please do share it on and we can try and hopefully spread the word about the support available through that. We also have a Q&A function available today. So at the top top right hand side of Teams, you'll see a Q&A button. If you click on that, you should be able to ask any questions or comments throughout the session. If there's anything that you'd like further clarification on that you hear about today, or something that isn't addressed, please do ask it there, and then we'll try and have a Q&A session at the end if time allows to try and mop up some of those questions. So please do make use of that. We've got some great speakers today. So we've got Sarah Sparling from Essex County Council, and we've also got Sarah from Employers for Carers, which is a branch on behalf of Carers UK. Sarah's here to talk about some of the internal support offered within Essex County Council if you're an employee, but also to share some of the best practice if you're not employed by Essex County Council. And Zara's here to talk about some of the signposting and the resources available for carers for employers as well. So yeah, I'll hand over to Sarah now, please.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ben. And it's brilliant to be with you here today. I should say Happy Carers Week. We're on day 5 of Carers Week, and hopefully everyone has been engaging with the brilliant activities that you've had hosted for you this week. So just a little bit about myself to begin with. I work within our Employers for Carers team, which is the workplace arm of Carers UK. And Carers UK is the leading national charity for unpaid carers. And I myself used to be a carer for my mum and juggled work and care for many years. And as we'll see, I'll show you some data and some statistics. And I found out that I became the statistics. So this is all very close to my journey, and any opportunity now to shed some light and raise awareness on what it means to actually be a carer, juggling work and care, and most importantly, connecting carers with that support is very, very meaningful for me personally. And as I said, the whole reason Carers UK actually exists is to make life better for unpaid carers, and we tend to do that in a number of different ways. So we campaign for carers through awareness weeks like this. We help connect carers together so that they don't feel like they're caring alone. We have lots of information and expert advice, and I'll come on to that a little later as part of what that support can look like for carers. And we also try to find carers in wherever they are, whatever stage they may be at in their caring journey. We just want to make sure they're accessing the help that they need, and we're regularly in dialogue with carers, so we're really being informed exactly from their experiences, from their lived realities of what it is that they need help with. And the theme for this week is caring about equality. And so today, what I would like to cover with you all is looking at what it means, the impact caring has on individuals when they're trying to do both, have a career and care, the nature and role of organizations in supporting carers who turn up every day trying to do the best they can, how it actually affects well-being, retention, and business outcomes. And then, of course, just looking at some of those resources that might be really relevant and useful, whether you're a carer yourself, whether you're a supportive colleague who might know a carer, or in just chatting with friends within the workplace, recognizing them as carers, and most importantly, whether as a manager or an organization at large, what that support could be on offer. So when we talk about carers, who are we talking about? If we hop across, brilliant. And sometimes we can have some idea of what it is that we mean when we talk about carers. So, in the context of just out of the workplace, in the workplace, and certainly at a local authority, you might hear the word carer in different capacities. So, you might talk about paid carers, so especially within the adult social care system. You might be thinking about carers who are employed as such. You might be thinking about parents who are caring for children in the mainstream way of children without additional needs. So there might be many different layers to that. You might even think about carers as those who are involved in a lot of maybe physical and personal care for elderly relatives or parents who are more frail, or grandparents and such. So sometimes when we even hear the word, we might have an idea, and I'm here to let you know that actually the definition that we use at Carers UK is a carer is anybody who looks after a loved one who may be older, disabled, or ill. And you can see from that definition that's actually quite a broad definition that we use. It could really apply to so many different types of situations and circumstances. And actually, that's the whole point. We want it to apply to lots of different situations and circumstances because that's the reality of caring. And if we think about who could be a carer in 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 that bracket, from our research and from analyzing census data, we know that actually 12,000 people become carers or became carers every day from a 10-year period using the census data from 2010 to 2020. And if we think about life now and life then, if anything, we have more information to show us that we're living longer. We are an aging population. So I can well imagine that that statistic is true, and if not, perhaps significantly larger. So 12,000 people every day. And what that always shows me, when I sit and talk about this, is that's not a small group of people. That's a huge number of people. And sometimes when we're caring, it can feel quite isolating. It can feel quite singular. Our experience can be quite personal behind closed doors. But actually, that number tells me that it's more of a collective, more of a universal experience. And what we know is that actually caring can happen quite literally at any time. It could be anything that could happen during the day that that could make us a carer. And the biggest and most common experience that we have shared collectively recently is, of course, thinking about COVID, when that actually did affect so many in this way. And one thing to note that we've had feedback from many carers that we've spoken to is that so many of them have told us that actually they didn't feel that they had a choice in their caring responsibilities or taking on those caring responsibilities. And that's important because it helps us distinguish between parents who are caring for children without additional needs and the milestones attributable to that experience. And that's why when we talk about carers, we talk about it in this broader sense of making sure it encompasses that element of those looking after those who are dependent on them, with either those with age, disabilities, or illness. And further, to sort of add a layer of perhaps complication to that, is it can take on average 2 years for carers to self-identify as a carer. For me personally, that actually became 16 years because I didn't recognize myself as a carer. And it can create a barrier which is really relevant, not only just in our personal lives, but how we then show up within the workplace if we keep that period of time in mind where carers may not be talking about it or may not recognize themselves as a carer. And if we just think about, what does caring actually involve? What does it look like? What does it mean looking after loved ones or helping out? We've said that it can happen at any time. Maybe we could just have a look at what carers have told us actually they think is included within this activity, with this role of caring. And I don't think it could be summed up any better. Actually, this is probably my favorite definition because it really paints a picture. And it could actually be all of these, It could be some of these at some points in life. It could be none of these. Maybe your caring experience might be actually something very different to this, but essentially it is all of the elements of the personal care that we talked about, the physical care, but it involves the emotional support as well that sometimes we overlook. That reassurance, that extra encouragement. Really, what does it take to keep our loved ones feeling safe, having a quality of life, and being as independent as they can be, irrespective of whatever challenges they may be facing? And how do we as a carer continue that? And as you can see, if we elaborate and expand it a little bit, practically speaking, that could be the cooking and the cleaning. It could be taking the loved ones to hospital appointments and healthcare appointments. Often we sort of use the word, chauffeuring around between all of these different appointments that they need to get to. But it also is that practical side of managing the finances and life admin that they can't get round to. It's including the medication, and it's just helping them stay safe, as I said. So it really is so wide ranging. And so if we think about, well, now we know how many people are becoming carers. We've talked about that. We've talked about all the things that it could encompass, and it's actually quite wide ranging. So it's very possible that so many people are actually caring right now. Why is it so hard then to self-identify as a carer? Why is it so difficult to come forward and say, I'm a carer, I need some help, I need to ask for help, and I need to be supported better? So there are a number of different reasons why. And if we just explore a little bit as to some of the barriers, firstly, the reason, if we just pop back one, sometimes the reason why that could happen is because of this changing nature of care. So sometimes it's sudden, as we were just describing, perhaps during COVID, that might have felt like quite a sudden element of caring being brought upon us. Perhaps it's a loved one having an unexpected diagnosis. Perhaps it's involving an accident. All these things that we can't really control, these things can happen, and that might make us a carer quite suddenly, quite unexpectedly. Other times it could be this gradual onset. So perhaps, like I mentioned, for me, it was definitely my mum slowly needing more and more support, but actually refusing to acknowledge that she needed that support. So we both were in a state of denial, her in the denial of needing more help, and me in the denial of giving her that help, because between us we didn't talk about it in that way. So it could be that gradual sense, and we never actually have that light bulb moment. Carers don't just suddenly wake up one day and say, right, I'm a carer today. It is just, we're just doing what we need to do, doing what's needed, helping out. What else would we be doing? Which obviously is our loved one, we care about them. And that's also the reason why we don't identify, is because we consider our caring role through the lens of the relationship with our loved one. So you'll often probably hear, if we sort of open up to the language, you might actually hear colleagues, friends, family members, perhaps yourself, saying things like, "Oh, no, I'm just a daughter. Oh, I'm just helping my partner out. Oh, my brother just needs a little bit of help because of his condition or his illness or age." Um, we often position it in that way. So we're not using that word carer at all, really. We're barely using it in our day-to-day language. So that's a bit of a tip or a clue, is when we're going about these conversations in our day-to-day at work, we're not looking out for the word carer. In fact, we're probably looking out for all these other references that are going to be important to help carers connect to that role and help carers get that support. And sometimes, especially if we've been told that where carers may not be doing the majority of the care, so maybe they're helping dad look after mum, they don't think what they're doing is enough. So again, there's that disconnect. I'm not a carer because I'm not doing it for most of the time. And often we hear that they might be caring from a distance, especially if you're not living with the person you're helping look after. Doesn't mean that you're doing any less caring. We often hear examples where carers might say, "Oh, well, I don't live with dad. I go across once a week. I check in, but I phone every day, and I check in with the paid carers that go in all the time." That's still caring. And I think it's also using this session to explore what counts as care. It is, as I said, all of the things that we might have referenced, and it is about acknowledging that that is all the things. And I think it's really important at this point to also talk about how likely it is that we might become carers, because that actually brings it right into the workplace. It brings it right into our homes, because actually, if we move to the next slide, please, it does show us that so many of us are likely to become carers, 2/3 of adults. And that's, if we think about just going about our day, how many people we interact with, how many people we might come across on a Teams call, or within a meeting at work, it's a lot of people. It starts adding up very quickly. And actually, if we break that down by demographic, women we see have a 50-50 chance of becoming carers by the age of 46, men a little later by the age of 57, but both are within, very much firmly within that career bracket of when you're most likely to be established in your careers, or considering all the career options to yourself. Definitely not at that point where you'd be thinking, I'm going to now just become a carer full time. You'd be very much within the trajectory of your qualified and professional perhaps life. So it just goes to show that it's coming to us without perhaps any acknowledgement that this might form part of our career and life experiences. And what is the impact of that then? What happens then? And our report this week that we launched on Monday really showcases the impact, and from the perspective of looking at the inequalities that carers face. And it's not hard to think about the inequalities that carers face when we think about carers who might be caring without realizing they're carers who might not feel comfortable talking about their caring responsibilities. If we start thinking about the reality, not really surprising that the impact on physical and mental health can be quite strongly felt by carers themselves. And here, just as a snapshot, showing you that so many carers have either had a physical or mental health condition develop or worsen since they've become a carer. Quite a large number, actually, 43%. 58% have said that they've actually faced disadvantages looking after their own physical or mental health. And that's quite a large number there, 58%. And so we're beginning to see that this impact is very real, very much felt in the day-to-day lives of carers. And in fact, they are being affected in the ways that we don't talk about. And they are being affected in terms of whether they can stay in work and explore career opportunities, in terms of what their health might look like now and what it would have looked like perhaps had it not been for their caring role. So we're really trying to understand what this means, and all the while still juggling work, still juggling life and relationships and care. And if we bring it into the workplace, if we move across to the next slide, what are what's the reality within the workplace? Our research has shown us that actually 1 in 7 maybe juggling work and care. In some industries, that's actually 1 in 3 in the NHS, for example. So it varies from that. And even if we take it at round figures, let's say 9-10%, that's 9-10% of your colleagues juggling work and care, doing two full-time jobs essentially, perhaps thinking that they didn't have any choice but to do this, perhaps struggling with their own physical and mental health conditions at the same time, and then also thinking about just what they want their life to look like in the perspective of professional trajectory and career. At that point where we might be, as you know, looking at the likelihood of being impacted at the age of 46 to 57, um, that's a point where we might be thinking, oh, yeah, I've got some good work experience. I know what I'm doing now, or I like the role I'm in. I might want to have more training or upskill or try something different. Or you might be thinking, oh, I'd quite like to be promoted and be acknowledged and recognized for what I'm doing, because I've got some good time that I've invested in this already. And unfortunately, a lot of carers don't have quite that trajectory. If they are caring for loved ones, they're actually twice as likely to suffer from stress if they're unsupported. They may also be working below their potential and reducing hours or giving up career opportunities. And actually, we know that that means that 600 carers every day are having to give up work because they can no longer balance work and care. So that could be colleagues that you see every day who are juggling work and care, and then not seeing them because they've had to make the very difficult decision to give up work. Because we always come back to this in these sorts of sessions, nobody's going to choose to not look after their loved one if they can help it. They're always going to put their loved one first. And it was something that came up very strongly when I was speaking to some carers yesterday. They said, well, I'm never going to regret having looked after my mum or having looked after my partner. And that's the reality. And what does that mean? Well, that means they take with them all that skill set, all that experience, all that knowledge, they take it with them. And carers have told us time and again, they actually want to be in the workplace. They want to be contributing. They want to have an identity which is more than just a carer, not to undermine what caring is, but they want to contribute more and they want to feel valued and they want to be able to exercise that experience and that knowledge that they've worked really hard to get to. So it's sort of a lose-lose at this point for organizations and also individuals. And so what can we do? What can we do to stop that from happening or mitigate that or try and reach carers before they get to that point where they think, oh, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I have to leave. And we've seen time and again, and this is not rocket science. I'm not going to be imparting any sort of special knowledge here. This is all quite obvious and all, something that we would all probably individually say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But carers have just said that they would like some understanding, some flexibility, access to equal career opportunities, and perhaps some information. It doesn't sound unreasonable when we think about all that carers may be juggling, all the different plates that they may be spinning. You'd think, well, actually, yeah, having an employer, a manager, colleagues who understand that actually that's their reality. And so when they turn up on a Teams call or when they come into the office and when they meet those deadlines and they deliver on projects, understanding that they're doing that in addition to all the other things that they have been going through. And caring is quite unpredictable. It can come with many uncertain elements to it. And actually, by the very nature of caring, there could be some difficult moments involved, navigating some really tough conversations, navigating some tough experiences. And some of them may actually be quite long standing. So, not just one item of a difficult moment, and then lots of time to process and think about and reflect and move through. It could be back to back. Might have difficult moment upon difficult moment upon difficult moment. Navigating that, it might be quite sustained for a while, and carers having to really bring that alertness and that energy to supporting that loved one. So really having that understanding and that awareness, and I think it's through the session that we can actually explore what that understanding is, because we're talking about it, we're doing what's really actually needed, is we're really bringing it into the open, and we're saying yes, it can be quite difficult. Flexibility is key. I think all of us probably appreciate flexibility just without carrying responsibilities. Sometimes there's a yoga class that we want to get to, which is in the middle of the day, but we really like that teacher, or perhaps we really need to go for that walk, and there's a park which is a little bit further away, but we really know that that's going to help make the massive difference to us if we've had back-to-back meetings. So a little bit of flexibility, being able to schedule life in and around work is really helpful, especially now that we're working more remotely. I think we've all had that opportunity to feel what flexible working really is for us, and what makes a difference to us. And for carers, it can be quite literally make or break. It can literally be about being able to do both or not. And so what does flexibility look like for carers? And I think it's really important to bring carers into that conversation. It's really important to ask those questions. And so with that, it means that they can also have the autonomy to understand what career opportunities are going to be for them, but not having that decision made for them. I think that's really important, and I think carers very much feel that they might not be part of these conversations. People trying to assume their capability or competence. And I think that actually is one of the barriers that carers feel, and why it might be affecting how they talk about caring at work. And if we have a look at the next slide, it just highlights some of these barriers that might stop carers identifying as such at work. It might be because it might be a difficult situation that they're navigating. It might be that they're not ready to talk about it in the fullest sense. They might be worried about what that reaction might be. How are colleagues and managers going to now look at them? Are they going to think that they are less able to do their job? These are all really real, and I think if we can start talking about that or identifying that, then that helps us as colleagues, as managers. How do we talk to our carer colleagues? So actually, what does help? What can colleagues do to help with that conversation and help make it a little bit more comfortable for carers to come forward? Well, I think the first place to start is don't make assumptions. Just because we've identified all the ways that caring might present and what caring is, if we can be clear on that, doesn't mean that carers will feel any more comfortable coming forward to identify as a carer, or feel any more comfortable talking about the fullness of their situation. Even though you may say, oh well, I'm going to provide that safe space, please tell me all about your caring role, they might just not want to. For many carers, work actually provides some form of respite, so they say, well, actually maybe I don't want to talk about my caring, I've done enough of that, I just want to get on with the job at hand. So I think not making any assumptions, but actually what can we do? Can we signpost to workplace policies and support? Can we actually be that voice of knowledge and cut through all the noise and say, have you looked at this? This might very well help your situation. And without expectation, it might not help them, but it doesn't mean it wasn't helpful. So I think just being aware of what we can signpost to and our role and the influence we can have. If we move now to what can managers do, we might have colleagues right now who are juggling all of this, may not have said a word to us, but can we be approachable? Can we actually be proactively approachable? Can we start that conversation? Can we be open to discussing flexibility? Can we be open to discussing all the different types of arrangements that we might be able to offer, whether that's a formal or informal arrangement? I think it's really important for managers to consider what that might mean for each individual colleague and each individual colleague who might be a carer. being informative and knowing about the supports in place. So can we signpost to the network? Can we signpost to policies that are available? Do we have additional employee benefits that might be useful to think about or to put forward? It could also be really simple things like letting colleagues have as much time to take private phone calls, as much opportunity to engage, and not be made to feel that they're missing out on a call that is a team meeting, for example, because it clashes with maybe a call with a doctor or a hospital. So just being really sensitive to that, and allowing that, making it very okay, making it okay, I think is clear, is just making it comfortable for them. And actually, if it's not an emergency situation, can we be more responsive rather than reactive? Can we actually say, let me think about that so I can come to you and we can explore the best options available for us both? Can we then talk about a trial period, being willing to experiment? All of that is within that responsiveness, rather than no, I can't right now, or no, that's not going to be possible, or policy doesn't quite say that, or I'm not sure. Can we just take a moment? Let's take a pause just to think about what is it being that we're being asked of? What does the carer actually need? Really listening, really honing in on that ask, and thinking about, okay, if we're asking for this, what else can we incorporate with that? Is it possible that that situation may change? It helps us plan, and planning is really key when we're trying to keep just business going as usual. So I think it's really important to understand that. And what does that look like on a practical basis? So as a manager, let's start asking the question. If we move forward to the next slide, please, what does that look like? Let's start asking that question in one-to-ones, in appraisals, through awareness raising sessions, in the return to work conversations. How often can we start engaging with this topic of, are you looking after someone? Have you been looking after someone? Do you need some help? Let's not assume that all carers need the same thing, and let's not assume that they know what they need. Sometimes they may not until it's presented and they say, oh, that might be a good idea, or actually I had a really great conversation because you signposted me to here, I got some information and this is what I need. So I think it's really about normalizing this conversation around caring and all the different stages of caring that might exist for our colleagues. And it is really important to speak out about all the other hubs within the organization, so HR and Carers Network, that all form part of this collaborative approach to support. And again, being really aware that that is all the options. Managers don't need to feel that they need to have all the answers right now, straight away, and just know everything. It's just about the next moment, helping support along each stage. So what can carers do? If we move across, we've said a lot about how colleagues can help and how managers can help. For carers, it's important to realize that this is your experience, but the more you can share about it, the more likely it is that you will be able to start connecting those dots of support. So do come forward and talk about what that support might need to look like, or what you're going through. Where are the pressure points? It doesn't mean that you have to actually give absolutely every detail involved about your caring responsibilities. You don't have to go into things that might feel too private, but it is just opening up about what the reality looks like. Where are you getting stuck in terms of time? Where where is it a little bit too much, and why? Let's start thinking about that. So it is really important to start thinking about your whole situation, maybe a little bit objectively, through the lens of, if I were looking down on this situation, what would I identify as being the key things that might really help? And it is just very helpful to think about all the things that we know are coming up and being vocal about that, because actually it allows a bit of space for when the things that we don't expect come up. It gives us a little bit of wiggle room to try and manage foreseen and unforeseen situations, because that does come up. Even though as a carer sometimes everything can feel all at once, as though we're always, because caring doesn't really stop in between appointments, we're doing so much, but it is really helpful to start thinking about what's in the diary, what's coming up, what's going to be taking up my time, why is that, where can I have some support, because that is what you can have as part of a team. And I think having those conversations really opens up that team, that culture of support collectively. And it means that you can then also hopefully take some time to look after yourself, which means that you have then a little bit more energy to turn up at work. And that's exactly what we do within the Employers for Carers Forum. It is about promoting that idea of support and recognizing that carers bring so much to the table, but we need to have these really important conversations to understand what does that best practice look like, what are the tools that we can implement. And within our resources, if we move across, we do have a lot in terms of helping managers. We have sections dedicated to line manager support. So if you are a colleague working at Essex right now within the council, then you have access to all of these resources that can help you prepare to have the conversation. We have toolkits, we have things that are very, very practical that can help you understand what that care looks like, what that support looks like, and understanding how we can help carers connect the dots a little bit more. And if we move across, we'll just show you a few of those resources right now. We have some e-learning modules to boost your carer awareness, to understand what it may feel like, but also to understand what the rights are, what entitlements are. And so that means that we can turn up as informed as possible as colleagues and managers. It also means that we can understand what type of conversations we can have, so questions that might be helpful. So moving across, some of our most popular resources are a couple of these toolkits, which are the starting the conversation toolkit and having the care conversation toolkit. If we just click one more time, they'll come up on screen. And those are very key because sometimes we might need a little help to prepare. We might not have the right words, and these are providing the right words. Just a few prompts now and again to understand what that conversation could look like for us, both within the workplace and at home. If we just move now across to some external support, because I think it's really key to identify that even if you recognize that yourself as a carer or not, whether you're a manager who sees carers within your team or your colleagues who you see carers as friends in and amongst your day-to-day work life, it's really important to know that there is support, that caring doesn't have to be done alone. And Carers UK has a whole host of different resources available, which are all practical and which are focused to ease moments of care, whatever that might be. So from understanding your financial rights and benefits that are available to helping you plan better, to helping you look after your well-being, there is a lot available, including a helpline where you can speak to advisors. And sometimes we recognize ourselves within the conditions of the people we're looking after. And if we move across, we can see that we have a whole conditions hub. So sometimes it might help to just look through the lens of the condition. So whether that's perhaps dementia or cancer, sometimes it's really useful to understand that extra language or what the healthcare professionals might be talking about and break through the barriers in that way. So we have specialist support in that way because we do recognize that. And sometimes as well, speaking to the local authority here, looking at your locality, what support is available. And I know that we'll be speaking to Sarah in just a moment, so who'll be able to expand on what's available locally, but it can be massively helpful to have help on your doorstep. What are the carers groups around? What organizations? Are there any more condition specific organizations that you can approach? It's always useful to think about all and every type of support, whether that's at home, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's within your community. And some of those practical support tools as well, just highlighted here, we have an app which helps basically connect all the dots of caring. And that means that you can put all the tasks related to your caring responsibilities in one app. You can put hospital appointments and calendar invites, and you can put your to-do lists and all the information coming out from hospital appointments and from medications. All of that goes into one app, and it means you can share it with those who are sharing the care with you. So if you are looking after mum and you have cousins and brothers and sisters who may be also helping, then you can invite them and you can all keep it in one place, which means that you're not feeling as though you've forgotten something or worrying that you're not up to date with everyone else. We also have a couple of additional tools to help you navigate your financial benefits and entitlements through a series of questions, and also looking at putting in place some contingency planning. So thinking about what would happen if you aren't able to provide that care. So these are all tools that you can signpost to as a manager or as a colleague or as a carer you can utilize straight away. You have access to. So I think on that note, if we just finalize with just wrapping it up, the importance of talking to people, the importance of taking up that support, and the importance of finding time for yourself. If those are your takeaways from today, then I think we can encourage each other to look after our carers and all that they're navigating. And if we hear a little bit more from Sarah to talk about what that looks like at Essex Council.
Thanks, Sarah. Tough act to follow. Oh my goodness. Okie dokie. So my name's Sarah. I'm in my paid job. I work in adult social care as a workforce development lead, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of the co-leads in the Carers Forum here at Essex County Council. We work really, really closely with Zara and her colleagues to make sure that our Carers Forum is the best. We pride ourselves on it. So part of the Carers Forum has different arms of it. We've got carers assessments, carers passports, information about taking time off and different work styles. Obviously the Carers UK, training for managers and people support. So if we could just go to the next slide. What do we know already in Essex County Council? As of last week, that figure was 324 members in the Carers Forum, but today we now stand at 342, which means that this week, Carers Week here at Essex, has helped some of our colleagues identify, it's helped managers maybe signpost people, which to me is incredible. That just means that more people have come out and sort of said, yeah, I might need more help, and maybe are getting more resources and support for things to help them on their day to day. We have a Teams chat. That is the main crux of the forum. It sounds really lame and it sounds a bit naff, but actually we've got a lot of active members in there. Everybody supports each other. There's 80 posts over the last 90 days. Everybody supporting each other with the replies, which can be various questions. Some stupid, people just posting comments and jokes, and others, you know, asking for actual support on a daily basis, which allows people to know that they're not alone in this carer's journey, because part of that battle is thinking that you're isolated, thinking that you're going crazy with some of these emotions. And the reason that I'm so passionate about it is because, like Zara, I was a carer for my mum for 10 years before that caring journey came to an end. And I was sadly diagnosed with PTSD because of the complexities of it all. And I would hate for any of my colleagues across Essex County Council to feel that way when there is support there. And looking at our employee survey from 2024, 64% of our staff said that they were caring, 29% said no, and 7% said that they would prefer not to say. Is that because they just fear that they're going to be penalised for saying that they're a carer, not knowing what support is available? And then if we look at how much care people are doing, 9% say 50 hours a week. That is so doable. That is, you know, that sounds impossible, but it's really not when there's 24 hours in a day. it saddens me, the last statistic, to see that 11% said that they didn't feel supported, especially when the Carers Forum is there. And if we can help people identify, then hopefully they'll come forward. If you could have the next slide, please, Nat. Thank you, lovely. So the Carers Forum, it's a place where people can come and chat, just talk to each other. We have a once a month catch up, which is really informal. People can dip in as much or as little as they like. They can come to the Teams call, cry, share a good news story, offer advice to fellow carers. It is really their place to do and take what they need from it. Part of the chat as well, if people don't feel comfortable because they think, oh, a colleague's going to see that, I'm happy for people to give me their questions. I then post it in the chat and then people give their response. And that really helps them kind of come out of their shell and, you know, realise they're not alone, because other people are going, oh my gosh, I feel exactly the same. Or have you tried this? Have you tried that? Always kind of offering support for each other. It's really important as well that just because we work for the local authority, we don't think I'm not entitled to a carers assessment, because actually we are. So I always encourage everyone in the Carers Forum to get a carers assessment. A lot of people think, oh my goodness, that's a test. Well, a carers assessment isn't a test. It's a conversation about what's important to you as a carer, what's going to get you through the day, what do you want to continue doing. I know when I was caring for my mum, I used to swim a mile a day and cycle at least 60, 70 miles every other day. That all stopped when I was in the thick of my caring, because it just wasn't possible. But if I'd had a carer's assessment, if I'd known about these things, maybe that would have been a slightly different outcome for me, which would have changed maybe some of, my life's goals afterwards. If we could have the next slide. Thank you. So the Carers Passport is what we have here at Essex County Council, and it's a starting point for you to complete and then talk to your manager about. You fill in as much or as little as you want, just saying who you are, who you're caring for, how that impacts you at work, how that impacts you at home, who's supporting you, is anybody supporting you, all of the things that are important. And I'm more than happy to sit and talk to people about how to fill it in, as are other carers in the forum. We encourage you to then store that on My Oracle. And the reason we encourage that is because it might be that your manager is so understanding. It might be that you don't need that passport completing. But if your manager leaves, or if your manager gets hit by that bus that we all talk about, who's going to support you then? So by storing it there, you can move with you when you go for your promotions and you get, different jobs within the local authority. And it's just your safety net. It means those holes are less likely for you to fall through. You can bring it up in your supervision every time you chat to your line manager. How is your caring going? Is it that things have changed? Are there things that we need to support you more on? So it's a really good way to help you have that open conversation with your manager. We've got another safety net feature on there, which is telephone numbers, because I was finding that people were calling me on a Monday morning when their loved one had been in hospital because they couldn't get hold of their manager. So now we've got a place where you can capture telephone numbers, so you've got that opportunity to call people. So different support that's available. Obviously, carers leave became a law last April, and Essex have obviously followed suit with that. We encourage all the carers in the forum to know what their rights are in work. We make sure that they know how to have good conversations with their manager about different time off and what leave options are available, family leave, compassionate leave, making sure that all of those are put in the pot to stir up and give a good outcome for you, to help you manage your work and your caring effectively. Because when somebody's then getting to that stage where they're, wanting to condense their hours or wanting to have, one day off, is it that they're not coping? What else can we do differently to support? So all of that information is there to help you in your workplace, in the hope that you don't get to be that statistic that Zara was talking about moments ago of, 600 carers a day leaving work. Can we go to the next slide? Okie dokie, thank you very much. We've also got the training for managers based on Carers UK. That is available on My Learning. So if you are a manager on this call, or you're an employee and you think, do you know what, I really think my manager could just do with a little bit of support in this area, signpost them to the training, and hopefully they will, you know, help a fellow carer a little bit better next time, have a better conversation. We're not saying people are doing it wrong, but you know, carers do feel the need to be a little bit better supported. And obviously we do have the portal, so you can call them or email them or raise a portal request to speak to the pod people at Essex County Council to get advice if things aren't going well in that respect. So yeah, we do have lots of support here. I'm just going to look at the time and think hopefully there are some times for some questions for people. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm mute. Thanks so much, Sarah. That's brilliant. And to both speakers as well. I think there's a lot of information there shared. Thank you so much. Do you mind quickly going to the next slide, please, Natalie? So I think, yeah, there's definitely about 5 minutes left for any sort of questions, any burning comments or queries you have. Please do put them in the chat now, and we'll try and address those if anyone has any. Just to also mention, while you're thinking of that, we haven't got any more webinars this week, obviously being Friday, but we have had the ones on the screen in front of you throughout the week, and we will have the recording available for those. So if you're interested in a different session that you're unable to attend, please do get in touch and we can make sure that you receive the recording for that as well. I'm just going to quickly flick back. I don't think there's any questions or comments that have come through yet. I'll give it another 10, 20 seconds, and if not, we will close early. No, that's absolutely fine. So, I mean, we're all available at any time, always happy to have a chat. If anyone has any questions separately outside this session, please just get in touch. If not, have a lovely day, have a lovely weekend, and speak to you all soon. Thanks all.